So tell me if you have noticed this, because every now and then I will watch one of those news reports that talks about what to expect during perimenopause. And it's basically just 10 minutes listing everything that can go wrong in your body, right? Like, have you observed this bizarro effect, basically? And of course, in those videos, they will eventually say, go see your doctor. Maybe you want to consider HRT. You should also think about managing your stress, exercise, all of that stuff, right? All the things that we know make perfect logical sense. But the thing that keeps bothering me is that a lot of the conversation is just saying, is presenting it as this is just what happens. And so, like, it's just what happens. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me because our environment plays a massive role in whether or not we thrive at anything in life, at any phase of life, right? And this body does not live in a vacuum. It's not living in isolation. So perimenopause is not happening in some vacuum away from this world. It's happening in this world. And there's a lot of chaos and imbalance in this world. Not just currently, but I'm talking about like just the history of what the body even carries before it comes to this midlife phase, right? So here are some examples just to kind of make this more concrete. So if we think, let's say, to puberty, for some girls, they start their period, it's painful, it's heavy, it's all over the place. And one of the common courses of action is here's some birth control. Now, the thing that's interesting about that approach is that birth control does not support the natural hormonal cycle, right? It changes it, it creates fluctuations. It suppresses what is naturally supposed to happen. And so basically what we're doing there is we're telling the body right off the bat, like, your natural, there's no room here for your natural process to occur. We're going to have to bring something in to manipulate things a little bit. And I do wonder, just spiritually and sort of energetically, like, what is that doing to our body? What is that doing to our cells to not be allowed to just be the way they are supposed to be? Another example would be, again, acne, right? Whether teenage or adult years. The use of birth control is also another common approach. And again, we're coming in, stepping in, and changing the natural process and sending that message to the body that it cannot just do what it was naturally designed to do. Other thing would be food, right? Our food is, especially if I'm really speaking to anybody who's like in the West and particularly in the US, we know our food is nutrient deficient. It's not what it could be. It's just not what it could be, right? Because we've worked the soil to death and we're not, the soil that's used for commercial farming, we're not replenishing it. We're not giving enough rest time. So it doesn't have much to give into the food. Can't pour from an empty cup. And that applies to soil too. The soil doesn't have much to give to the crop. And on top of it, that nutrient deficient food is most likely sprayed with pesticides. So now you're not getting enough of the nutrients that you would need to fight off the inflammatory effects of the pesticide residue. Interesting. So that's more stuff that the body has to contend with and that it contends with pretty much from the time it comes into this earth. If we think about also another thing would be that our personal care products, whether it's hair, skincare, whether it's even, pads, tampons, there are chemicals in all those things, right? In our skincare products and our hair care products, and those can get to your bloodstream. We know that some of these chemicals are just not good for us. They're not good for us to the point that they've been banned in some countries. Having things like perfume in your panty liners that can, for some women, create irritation and other issues, right? So again, more stuff that the body has to contend with, and that's just on like the physical level. There's also like the more, I would say, more to do with our awareness and our consciousness, right? More energetically. One example, and I've spoken about this, I think, in another video, whereas if you're in the US, you have a baby and you go back to work within 3 months, which to me is just saying it is jarring to even think that, because 3 months is all you get to like connect with this new human that you've just brought into the planet, right? Like, no, like for both parties, that can't be good. That can't be fun in any way, shape, or form, right? And also interesting because we know that there are other countries right on this same planet Earth where you can get more than 3 months, or you can get a year, or even more, and your job is also protected. But we're living in a space where that's in the consciousness that this is what we do. 3 months, you got to go back and you just got to suck it up. And then also language that we use. So if we think about like this phase of life, right? So menopause. Menopause is, that term is purely medical, right? It's really just saying it's the cessation of menstruation, right? It's the end of menstruation. That's all it covers. And then you can look at some other cultures and you look at like Chinese medicine where they refer to this phase of life as a second spring. So as you're going through perimenopause and into menopause, it's a second spring. And that's a whole different way of, that's those two, the language there is so different, right? Because that spring language, spring is about everything blooming and rebirth and coming to life. That is very, very different from cessation of menstruation. Two very different perspectives, right? All coexisting on the same planet Earth, which is also very interesting. So there's, I could go on and on. There's so many things, and these things just run through my brain sometimes too often. I have to, but I just find it fascinating that since the body isn't living in a vacuum, and none of this is happening in a vacuum, we can't just talk about it as this is just what happens during perimenopause and just try to act like it makes sense that for some women perimenopause is fine, for others it's not, right? So everybody's got a different experience, but certainly what's happened, it seems to be happening, is more and more people seem to be struggling, right? And the struggle seems to be also matching up with more and more of the sort of external chaos that's happening. So is it a coincidence? I don't know, right? I'm just one woman out here observing and participating in life best I can. But I do think that we have to remember that, in the same way that a plant can't bloom in soil that isn't healthy, the human body also cannot bloom in soil, i.e., an environment that isn't healthy. And to me, the way I look at perimenopause is that it's a phase where, there's massive shifts happening. So I lean 120,000% in the Chinese medicine perspective, which is it's a second spring, right? It's a new bloom coming to life. But in order for that to happen, right, there needs to be good soil. And so I think what's happening for a lot of women in the West is that the body is going through a massive shift, but then it's being hit in so many directions with things that are depleting it and depleting it and depleting it. And so we're seeing the manifestation of that, the result of that. We're seeing that in the physical symptoms and the emotional symptoms and the mental health and all of it. But I personally will hesitate to just buy into the idea that this is just what happens simply because you are midlife. But that's just me personally. And so I just wanted to make this video to share that perspective, because there might be somebody, you might be watching this and maybe you're feeling some of this, maybe you've thought some of this, but you couldn't really find the words for it. And so I just wanted to throw it out there that you are a lot more than just estrogen, right? Your estrogen matters, but you're much more than that. And that is actually one of the reasons why I called my community the Beyond Estrogen Collective, because I am personally just not interested in in having conversations where it's all about micromanaging a hormone or hormones. Like that level of micromanagement is not, to me, is not fun. Health, living your life should be fun. And being healthy is just part of life. Shouldn't be some other separate thing that you put in a different bucket. It should flow. And whatever habits we're cultivating as far as exercise, food, herb supplements, like all of that needs to happen in a way that it's organic, so you don't feel like you are another chore, another to do in your own life, right? So, and for me, that starts with realizing that we are much more than just that estrogen, that there's a whole lot more going on. I mean, it's the reason why, some women are okay when they do hormone therapy, but then for some other women, doesn't help a bit. They have to go look elsewhere, right? Precisely because there's a whole lot more going on with us than just that. So that's the video. That's the entire thing. I just wanted to rant and ramble and share this with you. If this resonated with you, share, like. Also, come check out my community, because that is where I am basically just sharing what's working for me. And we're just going through, it's a brand new space. We're about to kick off a new 7-day ritual next week. It's an herbal tea ritual. We'll just get into the practice of making tea, enjoying it, savoring it, but start nourishing the body, really at a deeper level. And herbs also, just like us humans, we have our own energetic properties. Herbs also have their own energetic properties, and they're not to be underestimated as far as how they can support us, along with food and movement and and meditation and all the other things that I am going to be going into in that community. So if any of this resonates with you and you're looking for something that is simpler, and like I said, that doesn't have that micromanagement, and you want to operate from a space of not feeling like you are a victim to your body, but actually realizing that you have influence over your body, and also just knowing that whatever you might be experiencing isn't simply because you're in midlife, but more because of the environment. That also can change things, because you start to take your mind back, you take your power back, right? Because it's draining to walk around just thinking that, oh, well, I guess this is just what happens to the female body. That's a very exhausting and depleting state of mind to be in, versus, oh yeah, no, I know what's up. There are steps that I can take to change my environment, because you don't have to go fix everything, but there are some specific things that you can do, and you start to take your energy back. So that's my invitation to you. Again, share, like, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thank you for watching.